One night, Chris Smith, aka Peacemaker, encounters a door in the Quantum Unfolding Chamber, QUC, he uses as a storage area, in which he finds an alternate reality where his father, Auggie Smith, is alive and a superhero. 6 months later, Chris is displeased that he has not been taken seriously as a superhero and failed to join the Justice Gang, while Emilia Harcourt has been unable to find work in other agencies due to Amanda Waller's influence. Acting Argus director Rick Flag Sr. is distrustful of John Economos' report on Peacemaker, while Economos and Leota Adebayo are aware that Flag knows that Peacemaker killed his son Rick Flag Jr. Chris returns to the alternate reality, where his brother Keith is shown to also be alive and a superhero. Chris eventually encounters his counterpart, and a fight breaks out in the QUC, which ends with Peacemaker 2 being mortally wounded and dying in Chris's arms. Argus agent Langston Fleury is assigned as Economos handler, as Flag Sr. grows suspicious of the latter. Adebayo visits Chris and informs him of Flag Sr. monitoring him, while suggesting he surrender the QUC to Argus. Adrian Chase meets with the pair and later helps Chris dispose of Peacemaker 2's corpse. While Chris and the 11th Street kids hold a party on the rooftop of Harcourt's apartment, Fleury leads an Argus squad to infiltrate Chris's residence, only to be assaulted by his bald eagle pet Eagly. A drunken Chris returns home and goes to the alternate universe once more, this time sending a text to this universe's Harcourt, who was previously in a relationship with Peacemaker 2. Chris goes to meet Harcourt 2 at Argus headquarters, where he learns that Flag Jr. is alive and dating Harcourt 2 in this universe. Harcourt 2 and Chris go on a walk, where Chris learns Harcourt 2 broke up with his counterpart because of his infidelity and unwillingness to commit to a serious relationship. Their conversation is interrupted by the Sons of Liberty, a paramilitary terrorist group who threatens to destroy a building with explosives. Chris sneaks into the building, kills the Sons, and deactivates the bomb. Later, after having an emotional conversation with Keith, Chris returns to his universe, unaware that Argus agent Sacha Bordeaux has mobilized a team including Economos, Fleury, Judah Master, and Eagle Hunter Red Saint Wild to raid Chris's home. Economos tips Chris off about the incoming Argus raid, prompting him to escape his home with Eagly and the gateway device for the QUC. Economos knocks out Saint Wild to prevent him from shooting Eagly, while Chris defeats Judo Master after encountering him in the woods. Chris calls Adebayo and explains the situation as both of them drive to a cabin in Settlers Hill, where Chris sets up the device to transfer the QUC gateway to the cabin before Argus could access it. Flag Sr. meets with Harcourt and offers her a chance to return to Argus, on the condition that she help him apprehend Peacemaker. Chris reveals to Adebayo his intention to move to the alternate dimension in spite of her protest, then later texts Harcourt asking to meet with her, unaware that she had reluctantly accepted Flag Sr.'s offer. As Chris goes to the meeting location, Saint Wild performs a ritual that grants him a vision, allowing him to locate Eagly at the cabin. At the meeting location, Harcourt tries to convince Chris to leave, denying that they had a connection after previously hooking up. However, not wanting Bordeaux to kill him, Harcourt knocks Chris unconscious herself. At Argus, Harcourt manages to get Economos to book Chris in jail to save his life as Flag Sr. brutally beats him up. Chris is let go and picked up by Adebayo, who takes him back to the cabin, unaware that Judo Master is following them on Flag Sr.'s order. Believing he does not belong in this universe, Chris decides to go to the alternate dimension permanently, along with Eagly, who, as the Prime Eagle, summoned a horde of eagles to maul Saint Wild to death, while the 11th Street kids were gone. Judomaster manages to sneak into the QUC before it closes. Later, as Adebayo reads Chris's farewell letter to the group, Harcourt resolves to bring him home.
Maybe I can meet another me in there.
The 11th Street kids set up the dimensional portal at Adrian's home and head to the other dimension to try and get Chris home. Harcourt is taken by Keith to Argus, where she meets Chris, while Adrian manages to find his dimensional counterpart. Adrian too reveals that Peacemaker 2 is his arch-nemesis and the reason why he joined the Sons of Liberty. Economos is found by Auggie and stabbed in the hand with a knife, causing him to confess the death of Peacemaker 2 to Auggie. Chris confesses his love for Harcourt, but does not want to leave the alternate universe. Harcourt 2 shows up and calls security on the original Harcourt after Chris discovers a US flag with a Nazi swastika on it in place of stars. Adebayo goes on a walk, but is soon pursued by Keith and other residents as racial minorities are persecuted in this world. Meanwhile, Flag Sr. visits Lex Luthor in Belle Reve and strikes a deal to move him to Van Kull Prison in exchange for his help in locating Peacemaker and his dimensional portal. Chris and Harcourt escape Argus before Auggie and Keith corner them and take them back to the Smiths' mansion. At the same time, Judomaster rescues Adebayo. Meanwhile, Flag Seer and Bordeaux work with Sidney Happerson, a former Luthor Corp employee, to locate the dimensional rift at Adrian's house. Auggie and Keith interrogate Chris, but are interrupted by the cops looking for Chris. The two vigilantes meet with Adebayo and Judomaster outside of the Smith house. Auggie allows Chris and his friends to leave the dimension, despite Keith's protests. Adrian sneaks up on and kills Auggie, to Chris and Keith's horror, and the kids head to the portal. Keith pursues them and is severely injured by Eagly, Adrian, and Harcourt, before a traumatized Chris stops them from killing him and admits that he feels responsible for all of the deaths that occur around him. After fighting off cops, the kids and Judomaster run back to their dimension and shut the portal down, but are confronted by Argus waiting outside of Adrian's house. Chris hands over the device to Flag and gives himself up for arrest. 1 month earlier, Chris and Harcourt go out for a night that ends in a kiss that results in Harcourt leaving. In the present day, Chris is in prison, refusing to see the kids. Meanwhile, Argus investigates the doors in the QUC, where multiple Argus agents are killed. Adebayo and Adrian bail out Chris, who takes Eagly and runs away, with none of the kids knowing where he went. Argus manages to find a habitable dimension, which they name Salvation. Flag Sr. pitches the new dimension be used as a prison for metahumans to the government, which is approved. Disillusioned, Bordeaux reveals this to Harcourt before using Bordeaux's Argus credentials to locate Peacemaker. The two then quit their jobs at Argus. The kids head to the motel where Chris is staying, and they tell him he is loved and appreciated. Harcourt tells Chris that the night on the boat was meaningful to her as well, and the two begin dating. 1 week later, they all start a new agency, Checkmate, alongside Bordeaux, Fleury, and Judomaster. However, Chris is kidnapped and trapped in Salvation by Flag and Argus.